We had case 2, which was Kerry. So Kerry is a 5-year-old, 6-month-old boy who has been diagnosed with quadriplegic cerebral palsy. He was initially diagnosed with failure to thrive, and we'll go into these definitions a little bit later on in the presentation. He currently has a PEG tube because he had difficulties with aspirating. He currently has a brain degeneration disease of an unknown etiology. He lives in a single-parent home, and his dad is not in the picture. He attends a full-day kindergarten program. He has quadriplegic hypotonia, a history of seizures, and he also has bilateral esotropia. He was on the assessment scale, he scored a level 5 on the GMFCS and also a level 5 on the MAX assessment scale. He previously received early interventions from 0 to 3 years old, and he is currently in special education class at his kindergarten program. So some relevant terms that we need to know. Failure to thrive is what he was initially diagnosed with, and that's just when a child is not gaining the weight or height like other children. And it's noticed when there's a slow progression, so they're either not walking on time or they're not crawling or sitting upright on time, which is what Kerry had. He currently has a PEG tube, and oftentimes this stands for percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy. And a lot of times people have this when they have poor nutrition or an inadequate diet. And also children will have these when they have difficulties with aspirating, which is what Kerry had. Brain degeneration, this is what Kerry was also diagnosed with, is a progressive deterioration of the nerve cells in the brain, and so these cells die, and it's also related with cerebral palsy. He also has bilateral esotropia, bilateral meaning affecting both sides, and esotropia meaning the inward turning of the eye, so pretty much he is cross-eyed in both eyes. He also has quadriplegic hypotonia, which means his arms are very floppy. He has floppy muscles and no control of his head. His arms and legs just kind of hang like a rag doll. Poor reflexes, and when you looked at him, you just could see he had no motor or no head control, no trunk control. Just couldn't really hold himself up very well. He also is using hand-over-hand therapy, assisted therapy, so that's pretty much when the therapist or somebody places their hand over the client and actually moves and manipulates things for the client, just so they have that sensation of actually doing it. And you want to move away from actually physically touching them to just having verbal cueing later on. So influence on occupational engagement. When we were observing Kerry, we noticed that he was unable to attend regular classrooms, and even though we didn't see him do his self-care, we can assume from our observations that he would be unable to dress himself, groom himself, do basic toileting and that sort of thing, just because he had no trunk control, just no strength, wasn't able to hold himself up very well. He was able to grasp objects, but he couldn't do anything meaningful with them, so we suspect that handwriting would be an issue later on. Sleep participation, we think would be an issue because we don't think he could get comfortable because he really just can't move his body. He would have difficulties with leisure activities that require muscle tone and endurance and higher level cognitive abilities. Even though we didn't actually get to see this, we suspect that he would have difficulties with these, and we would also like to see him in a more social setting. That way we could see Kerry interacting with others and see how he handled that.